Hi folks, I'm going to do the weekly overview. We're headed towards the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces on September the 7th. And my weekly overviews are, anyway, can often be done on Mondays, but I'm going to do it today because in the next couple of days then, probably by Tuesday, I want to do the lunar eclipse video. It is, of course, what we're headed to this week, right? So there are two things from a broad general perspective that we need to acknowledge about this week. Number one, September the 1st, or August the 31st, the day that I'm recording this, is the first day of a 28-day period that we're going to call sort of eclipse season. Starting the week before the first eclipse, which is a lunar eclipse in Pisces on September the 7th, up until a week after the new moon solar eclipse in Virgo on September the 21st. That takes us to about September 20th, 29th. So let's just say for the month of September, given the dates that the eclipse has fallen, we are right in the center of the eclipses. We're not 2 months before a lunar eclipse, which can have eclipse resonances. We're not 2 months after a solar eclipse, which can have eclipse resonance. We're in, sorry, I got bitten by a lot of mosquitoes yesterday. We're in eclipse energy. Number two, we're headed towards a full moon all week. And so the energy is going to escalate. The intensity will escalate. What is on our to-do list will likely increase. Our productivity is likely to increase. We're likely to be more active. We're likely to get more things done. But as we head to the full moon in the second half of the week, the sheer emotional intensity of heading to a full moon can sometimes affect our productivity. We're still getting things done, but our ability to organize, not get emotionally triggered. Emotional reactivity is going to mount this week, as is intensity, as is, and I think that a lot of us already have a sense of what these eclipses are shaping up to be about. I mean, the Virgo Pisces eclipses, sorry, there's some kids playing somewhere, and kids' voices can travel, especially when they're screaming like hooligans, but we will let that go because kids are kids and kids scream. And some of you would argue that they should scream. And you know what? You might be right. But not when I'm doing a video. They should magically know that everybody should magically know that I'm doing a video and should just be silent at that time. So, and for those of you who don't have a sense of humor, I am kidding. Only a little bit. I do hope you have a sense of humor. Okay, let's carry on. The Virgo Pisces eclipses really started to make their presence felt the middle of July of last year, 2024, and continue till February 2027. So, as I've been saying in the videos that I've done, the weekly overview so far, the new moon solar eclipse video, the especially the last couple of videos that I've done, there was a pep talk video that I did for the new moon solar eclipse video that I keep coming back to and I think is worth looking at. I'll put a link to it at the end of this. I think it's worth saying again that you do not need to rush or usher in the eclipses. You just need to have a sense of what they're telling you is likely to change. I also don't think you should go far as assuming what that change is going to look like. If you're in a work environment, things feel strangely all over the place right now, and you're thinking, oh, I think what these eclipses mean is that I should quit. For all you know, by the time we get to either the end of September or Thanksgiving, it could be that somebody else quits, and that brings a certain stability. You don't, the eclipses will make it quite clear when it is time to exit a situation or when it is time to move towards something or take something. But unlike the middle of July of last year. And unlike January 13th, the week before, week after, and March 13th, the week before and week after of this year. Oh my God, those kids. Seriously. Unlike those two time periods that are associated with this eclipse cycle, with this particular eclipse cycle, which has a solar eclipse on September the 21st, that is bookended by a lunar eclipse on March the 3rd of next year in the same sign, in Virgo. It's the only complete 6-month eclipse, new moon, full moon eclipses that we've got on this axis. I think as we head into the September, certain aspects and elements of what needs to change and what that change needs to stand for are starting to coalesce. I think we have a sense of the direction that we're going in. All I would say is be careful with the eclipses that the emotional reactivity or the impatience. The nodes are notorious for making us act impulsively. It's one thing to act on faith. It's another thing to act on faith prematurely. And there's something about the nodes and the eclipses that can lend itself to that. So have a sense of what is at work, but make no assumptions that you know the details for how things are going to roll out, or even necessarily when they're going to roll out. And by that I mean whether this eclipse cycle will play itself out by the end of September for you, or by March 26 for you, or by February, March 27 for you. I mean, this eclipse cycle continues all the way to Feb, March 2027. And some of us may be feeling like, oh, I can't possibly wait till then for these eclipses to play out. You don't know what the playing out is. I'm going to put this video on pause and turn on the air conditioning because I've closed the window and it is 90 degrees here in Los Angeles. So we're headed towards the full moon. We're headed towards the first eclipse, and we're in this eclipse period. And with all that I've said about the eclipse cycle lasting as long as it does, some of you, if you are entering September with a sense of, I can feel mounting intensity and change in my bones, you're not wrong. And when it comes to the eclipses of release in Virgo, you are welcome to look towards the week before and after January the 13th and the week before and after March the 13th of this year for signs of what it is that need to be released in Virgo. But I would not be surprised if it has a kind of a phased feeling, like it is in time. And remember one thing about the South Node in general and the South Node eclipses in Virgo. The South Node does provide a certain stability until it is redundant. There's a kind of a tipping point at which the South Node eclipses let you know that it's okay to move towards releasing something and that it's ready to be released. But until then, it may well be an energetically easier path that you can be on to access stability, even a certain kind of abundance. Okay. Now, this week, the following things happen. On September the 1st, let me see what's going on August the 31st. Well, August the 31st is today, Sunday. Mercury, we already covered that last week. We actually covered what happens on September 1st and 2nd, and even the 3rd to some extent in last week's weekly overview, but let's talk about it. We have Saturn coming into Pisces on September the 1st. We have Mercury coming into Virgo on September the 2nd. And as soon as Mercury enters Virgo, he squares Uranus in Gemini. And Mercury square Uranus is a reminder that when the new moon occurred in Virgo on August the 22nd, that new moon squared Uranus as well. So we have a further development of that as we head towards September the 3rd. On September the 4th, Jupiter trines the North Node and Mars squares Jupiter. Mars is in Libra and Jupiter is in Cancer. On the 5th of September, Uranus goes retrograde in Gemini and then moves back to Taurus on November the 8th. And on the 7th of September, of course, we have the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. So Saturn enters Pisces retrograde, Mercury in Virgo direct. Mercury squares Uranus. Jupiter trines the North Node, Mars squares Jupiter, Uranus goes retrograde, and then the full moon lunar eclipse happens in Pisces. Some important changes there. And I'm going to work my way backwards to describe all this. The full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces is actually, for all intents and purposes, a glorious full moon lunar eclipse, because the primary aspect that it makes is that it trines Jupiter in Pisces and Jupiter in Cancer. So the full moon lunar eclipse, and this is why I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the aspect on the 4th of September when Jupiter trines the North Node. Jupiter is going to trine the North Node because the North Node is where the eclipse occurs. I'm being a little bit general, but is the eclipse point. And the full moon lunar eclipse on Pisces on the 7th trines Jupiter in Cancer. So there is support, even a dependence that Jupiter will be, there's a kind of a, there's a harmonious flow between Jupiter ending a 12-13-year cycle and starting a 12-13-year cycle in the house occupied by Cancer in your chart. And the North Node eclipses in the Pisces part of the chart, urging you to move towards a certain energy, project, something in the house occupied by Pisces in your chart that holds the key to your future development. In the pursuit of that carrot at the end of the stick is when you will get valuable information or skills. Develop skills that you're going to need as you move forward. Full moons can bring completions, they can bring offers, they can bring, it is an eclipse. So, and this is one thing I'm going to say for September in general, information related to mortality. Other people's mortality, people dealing with illnesses that can have sort of mortal consequences, people moving into the, transitioning to the other side, you know, all those things can sort of feel like they're increasing in frequency. People or situation being eclipsed in and out of our lives. That, I have no doubt that for a lot of us, we are entering September very clear that we're sitting on some sort of rocket that is a rocket of change. The question for each of us is going to be, is the change happening in September? Is it a domino that falls in September that then leads to a series of dominoes falls that takes us all the way to February, March 2027? Remember that the September 21st new moon solar eclipse, 2 months after that, the week before and after November 21st, the week before and after January 3rd, and then of course the week before and after the lunar eclipse on March the 3rd are going to be important markers for this eclipse, for the solar eclipse in Virgo at least. But the full moon in Pisces, which is what is occurring on the 7th, trines Jupiter. And the only fly in the ointment for that particular lunation is that Mercury is close to the sun. Now, that is an important milestone. It doesn't happen till the week after this. But it's just that, understand that as you get, this is going to be truer when we are, it's going to be more of an energy for next week, not this coming week, the week of September 7th, where you're just going to have to watch that week for feeling a little bit Mercury retrograde-y. When Mercury's conjunct the sun, he's combust. So a lot of what we're relying on Mercury to continue to do for us it's like a minor Mercury retrograde. Let me just call it that. Kind of energy in terms of mishaps or the house occupied by Mercury slowing down. And in this case, Mercury and the sun conjunct in Virgo. I'm going to talk more about that. I'm going to. I'm going to. I'm going to. I'm going to. I'm going to talk more about the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces in the video I do for that. This particular weekly overview is starting to threaten to turn into an eclipse video. But what I want to convey, as we're moving backwards through the aspects that are happening this week, and the one on September the 7th is the full moon lunar eclipse, is that the intensity increases this week somewhat chaotically. We can feel change in our bones. What we don't know, we don't need to rush anything. The universe will make it clear to us whether some of us experience the change in September or whether some of us are going to end up waiting. I think it's fair to say that a domino falls in September, and we're waiting to see just how long it's going to take for that domino falling and all the other dominoes starting to fall to complete the purpose of this eclipse cycle on the Pisces-Virgo axis. There are schools of thought that say that we should become much quieter during eclipses, and we should be careful of reactivity. And I would say as this week progresses, I would say where you can, be in alignment in the direction of the change that is occurring without creating or feeding into drama. Pay attention to, as you head towards a full moon, emotional and intuitive truths and the pot of milk coming to a boil and the full moony feelings starting to emerge either in yourself or others. And as they occur, determine how you want to give voice to them, or whether you simply want to make note of them because you shouldn't ignore them, and whether by making note of them you acknowledge them and you know that you're going to act towards some sort of resolution, but you may or may not give into the kind of emotional chaos or tantrum energy that a full moon can create. Now, sometimes full moons can lead to exits, and if that is the case, then certainly if you're a Pisces rising or an Aquarius rising, with the full moon occurring in your second house, if you're an Aquarius rising, or first house in a Pisces rising, there could be some sort of self-expression, a boundary setting. I'm walking out and closing the door and turning the key and throwing the key away kind of feeling. Watch out for September is what I'm trying to say, and watch out for this week with regard to balance, paying attention to what the eclipses are encouraging you to transform and how God is taking the wheel and transformation is occurring. And determine that if there's drama this week, how you can make the most of gleaning what the meaning of the drama is without feeding into it, because there's going to be plenty of it no matter what. And what you don't want to do is precipitate things in such a way that you prematurely usher in a change that you think that the eclipses are about, but they're not really. What they're about is going to unfold over time. And you're just being asked to follow the breadcrumbs. But I do think as we enter September, and what I just said is good advice for September in general, as we enter September, we have a sense of the fact that change is in the air. On the 5th of September, moving back, Uranus goes retrograde. Now, Uranus is one of the planets like Saturn and Neptune that has stepped into the next sign for part of 2025, and then as it goes retrograde on November the 8th, he's going to go into Taurus, he's going to go direct, and it isn't until April the 25th of next year that he's going to come back into Gemini. And then he's in Gemini till 2032. Now, Uranus, even with this retrograde, makes an incredibly important aspect on September the 16th or 19th, which is that he trines Pluto, and those trines to Pluto will start up again once he's back in Gemini. And indeed, Uranus trine Pluto is the important aspect that is encoded into this full moon lunar eclipse on September the 7th. The full moon lunar eclipse on September the 7th, my darlings, is really quite, as eclipses go, quite positively aspected. There's something pointing very much to, I expect a new moon solar eclipse to point more clearly towards new beginnings, but this new moon solar eclipse, this full moon lunar eclipse is pointing us very much with the Uranus Pluto trine, and the full moon lunar eclipse trining Jupiter is kind of pointing to, again, new beginnings. There could be developments, there could be culminations. And remember, with this full moon lunar eclipse, the week before and after July the 7th plays an important role of this year, 2 months before lunar eclipse. So you can go back to see what occurred around that time. Some people may actually have felt this eclipse the week before and after July the 7th of this year. And with lunar eclipses, it's a solar eclipse that carries a kind of a tight, initiatory energy focus. And then as you head towards the full moon lunar eclipse, it's like a crescendo sign. Changes occur, but by the time you get to the full moon lunar eclipse, they are so kind of all-encompassing or much broader that when the lunar eclipse occurs, you don't realize that the changes have been unfolding for the past 6 months anyway. And rather than the full moon lunar eclipse feeling like a focus point, it's actually kind of a culmination of changes that have been occurring for the past 6 months and increasing in intensity since the week before and after July the 7th. And by the time you get to September the 7th, you have a full moon, but there's no lightning strike because the changes in an eclipsy manner have already been unfolding and are much wider. So that it's not going to be some focused lightning strike of change on the day of the lunar eclipse, but an acknowledgement that change has been occurring for the past 6 months. And indeed, since July, the week before and after July the 7th, and is reaching some sort of a culmination point. And that rather than have a focused tower moment like in the tarot, or something breaks apart or some sort of lightning strike, actually like a crescendo sign, the effect of the change has been so enormous, affecting so many aspects of our life, that it's already present by the time the eclipse occurs. September 19th, Uranus trines Pluto on September the 19th. Uranus is retrograde, but still in Gemini on that date. So Uranus goes retrograde on September the 5th. He enters Taurus November the 8th. He finishes up the transit in Taurus that he has been in the middle of since 2018, doing since 2018, by April the 25th of next year. So, and Uranus, whichever house he is in, is encouraging us to locate, identify our truest energy, us being in total integrity with ourselves, with matters related to the house that he is transiting, and following the breadcrumbs that are right for us. Uranus encourages specificity. It's not good enough to say, I am a sculptor, but if you've been avoiding saying that and it feels totally true to your sense of identity and purpose, then Uranus will at least get you there. And then beyond that, Uranus says, not only what kind of sculptor, but what is actually sitting in your heart and what actually feels right to you, what medium, how you want to, and how are you going to go about it in a way that is your way. It does not have to be the conventional way. There can be moments or aspects of the timeline or the journey that follow convention, that are right for you, and then other moments that do not. And very often what Uranus is actually encouraging is for you to align with the strategies associated with your North Node placement in your birth chart. So Uranus goes retrograde on September the 5th, and then finishes up his transformation, attempt to transform you in the house occupied by Taurus in your birth chart between November 8th of this year to April 25th of next year. The day before that, on September the 4th, Jupiter trines the North Node. We've already discussed the energy between Jupiter creating an ending and a new beginning in the house occupied by Cancer in your chart, ending a 12-13-year cycle, starting a 12-13-year cycle. And that process being in harmony with the North Node eclipses, encouraging you to move in a certain direction associated with the house occupied by Pisces in your chart. Intriguingly, whatever actions and activities Mars is encouraging us to take in the house occupied by Libra in our chart, where there can be increased conflict, but it's really about pursuing goals and setting boundaries in the house occupied by Libra right now, where Mars is. And a lot of our energy is likely to go where Mars is transiting. And something about Mars's transit through the house occupied by Libra and the actions that are associated with that is necessary. Jupiter creating his endings and new beginnings in the Cancer part of the chart can't quite successfully or efficiently or effectively create those endings and new beginnings without Mars taking some sort of action towards pursuing goals or setting boundaries in the house occupied by Libra in your chart. You may want to meditate on that. I can tell you, I know where Mars is transiting, and I know, and wherever Mars is, whoever is associated with that chart, if Mars is transiting your first, second, or third house, it's you who's likely to take action to set boundaries. It's you who's likely to be feisty and self-expressed. And sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a rash way. And right now, I would watch for rashness with the eclipses going on, so you don't feed into the energy and kind of topple things before they're completely ready. You don't pull something out of the oven before it is set, before it is baked. But the pursuing goals and setting boundaries in the house occupied by Libra in your chart, if Mars is not transiting your first, second, third house, if Mars is transiting your 7th house or 8th house or your 11th house, it could be that Mars energy is coming towards you from the people associated with that house in your chart. If Mars is transiting your 4th house, it could be either you pursuing goals related to your mother, it could be something to do with, especially with Mars going to the 4th, accidents, illnesses, incisions, surgeries, but more than that, it could also be, if it's going over the 4th house, the mother setting boundaries towards you. Or if it's 7th and 8th house, a personal or business partner or family member, or in the 9th house, the father, and the 11th house, a friend, or, you know. So that is at play. On the 2nd, 2 days from now, Mercury enters Virgo. We have the new moon in Virgo on August the 22nd. And now Mercury, the planet of communication and transactions, and that new moon in Virgo was a normal new moon, a regular new moon, urging you to take action over what was then 4 weeks, now 3 weeks, to bring the house occupied by Virgo into alignment and to pay attention to what is new and what wants to grow in the Virgo part of the chart. Because then when you get to the second new moon in Virgo on September the 21st, which is a new moon solar eclipse, a south node new moon solar eclipse, all the way to March the 3rd of next year, that new moon solar eclipse is going to encourage you to release what is outmoded over at least a 6-month period, and maybe even start a release that takes you all the way to February, March of 2027. The eclipses on the Virgo Pisces axis are overwhelmingly full moon lunar eclipses. This is the only new moon solar eclipse you're going to get in the Virgo part of the chart. And we haven't had one since the middle of July of last year. So we haven't actually really started the process of releasing what the South Node eclipses want us to release in the house occupied by Virgo in your chart. And I will talk, I promise you, I will talk more about that when we get to the new moon solar eclipse in Virgo video when we get to it. Now, I do address some of this in my new moon in Virgo video that I did, was it a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago, and the pep talk video. So you can look at both of those if you want to start to get a clue of what I'm saying. But Mercury coming into Virgo now picks up on this new moon energy and communication and transactions and cognition and making sense of taking steps through communication. This could also be technology, applying for things. Communication increasing, but also trying to make sense of how shall I bring the Virgo part of the chart into alignment? What do I need to do? It helps to have Mercury's energy to build onto the new moon energy because it gives us the power and the ability to start to think more clearly. Now, what is interesting is that we'll have access to Mercury's energy with a certain amount of clarity this coming week, but when we go into next week, Mercury is going to move towards conjuncting the sun. And that too has a purpose, so that the sun and that source energy and that connection to source from the sun can then inform Mercury and say, this is what you need to do now. So as you move forward, as the winged messenger moves forward, he's given a missive, an agenda, what to work on. It's just that during that time, not this week, but the week following that and the week following that, the second and third weeks of September, we may all of a sudden feel like, I don't quite have access to Mercury's energy fully. But it's still a very important, expect kind of ahas around, or developments around what is building in the Virgo part of the chart that is new, and what we start to release in the Virgo parts of the chart after that September 21st new moon solar eclipse that occurs. So, and Venus will enter Virgo on September 19th, and she will bring opportunity and financial opportunities and relationship opportunities. So, new moon has occurred, Mercury comes in on the 2nd of September, Venus comes in on the 19th, and on the 21st we have a new moon solar eclipse in Virgo. So more and more intensity and the archetypal energies associated with the planets that are starting to transit the Virgo part of the chart will start to become accessible to us. Saturn enters the sign of Pisces tomorrow. I have talked about this a few times already. Between September 1st and the middle of February of next year, the number one priority that we all have is to finish up the process of stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart. That has been continuing since March 2023, and that I have been raving about and wailing about like some sort of banshee. I don't even know if that's the right example or analogy. For a long time, it is time to bring the spirit of accountability, taking disciplined action, being responsible, setting boundaries, taking ourselves seriously and holding ourselves accountable towards becoming the best version of ourselves in the Pisces part of the chart between September the 1st of this year and the middle of February of next year, so that a lot of the chaos that has been mounting in the house occupied in Pisces in the chart since 2012 can finally be put to bed to the best of our ability, or the energy leaks can be released so that we're not as affected by them. If you do not honor Saturn's transit through Pisces from September the 1st to the middle of February of next year, whatever future state that you are trying to move towards and create, and that has unveiled itself between the middle of March of this year, but especially May 20th of this year till September the 1st, could be threatened by matters related to Pisces of the part of the chart toppling over in such a way that they don't self-sabotage, manage the energy leaks. Do what needs to be done to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart between September 1st and the middle of February of next year. That, friends, is your weekly overview for this next coming week. An alert that we are entering the eclipse period. an alert that you have the new moon in Virgo video at your disposal, the pep talk video at your disposal, so that you can at least attune yourself to some of the content I put out there as far as the eclipses are concerned, and the Virgo part of the chart is concerned. I've also done videos on looking at an eagle eye view of the rest of 2025, so you're welcome to take a look at that as well. There are 3 ways to engage with me: the free content I put out on this website, the membership part of the channel, $6.99 a month, and I am doing sign-specific content there for rising signs. And I have just switched to doing much more detailed videos that are time-consuming to create, but I feel richer and actually providing what I feel is more value for the money that I'm charging in the membership part of the chart. So if you want rising sign specific content, you can certainly look at the membership part of the chart, membership part of the site. And my email address and information on memberships is in the description box below. So if you're looking for a personal reading with me, for me to actually take a look at your birth chart and to read it and the transits that are occurring, then you can email me there and I can let you know what offerings are available and what the rates are. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. Next to the subscribe button is a bell icon. When you subscribe, you'll be offered to click the wiggly bell on top. If you do that, you'll be notified whenever I do new videos. It'll be helpful. And feel free to get the word out if you find my content useful, or share the video with others. You can contribute to this channel financially by using the thanks button below this video, or donating. Information on that is in the description box below. You can contribute to this channel for free by liking the video, leaving a comment, because those things increase circulation on YouTube. In a couple of days, I'm going to do the video for the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces, but you already know that the primary aspect it is making is trining Jupiter in the sign of Cancer, and the primary aspects that it is encoding is the Sun conjuncting Mercury. It's a wide aspect, but that's building. But even more importantly, Uranus now retrograde, trining Pluto in Aquarius. The first of a few of these trines that take us all the way to 2027. All right, that's it. More to follow, clearly. As the memorable line goes, fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride. But I know we all crave stability, but the chart never comes to a rest. And change is the only constant. And change is affirming and enlivening. Just don't scuttle the boat before it's had a chance to take you and drop you off within spitting distance of the shore that you're supposed to land on. But for some of you, change will start to, for some of it's, there's so many of us on the planet. It's a question for us of what these eclipses mean. I do think that they're clear in message. I do think we're clear. It's not the same energy as in July of last year. It's not even the energy of January through March of this year, which was very focused in giving us clues about what needed to be released in the Virgo part of the chart. But now we know that the actual transition is afoot. And we just don't know if that transition will be completed in September itself, by Thanksgiving, by the end of this year, by March of next year, or by March of 2027. Some element of the energy is going to go till March 27. So don't get ahead of it. But if you feel that things happen in such a way that the change is actually starting to occur in September, then you're going to have to work in partnership with Spirit on this. Okay, you know where to find me. Feel free to check out the rising sign specific videos if that resonates with you. They keep coming out, for one rising every couple of days, every day or two, a new video comes out there for a particular rising sign. I'll let you know when all the latest rising sign videos are done, but they're there and available for you to access. And feel free to reach out if you're interested in a personal reading. I will leave it at that. I'm repeating myself. Okay, bye. Take care.